social update UG, understanding the genesis of Muhammad Nsereko's computer internet law oba computer act gye yaleese. Jjukira nti nno act eno bagireese okubeera nga efufuggaza abantu abatambuza obubaka ku internet era ng'erimu obuwaayiro obw'enjawulo obwewuunyisa ennyo naye nga twagala tutegeere yava ku ki okubeera ng'ereetebwa mu nkola. Okitegeera kubanga jjukira nti nno gavumenti ebadde egezaako nnyo okubeera nga at least efuna engeri gyeziba emimwa gy'abantu naye nga ebiseera ebisinga tebeera successful. Kaakati nno yabadde ina okubeera ng'ekola mu nnongooseza era nga yakoze eno act eyafulumye oba internet act oba phone act nga yabulabe nnyo naye njagala tutegeere gye yava era tugiyite mu mpola. So ekisookera ddala, let's begin. Following the 2009 Kayunga protests, the regime banned public meetings, popularly known as Bimeza, and withdrew licenses from several radio stations, including CBS, that opened a new phase of repression using the law. Okitegedde bagenda mu 2009 okuva ku ziri protests ez'Ikayunga bagana kabaka okuba nga atambula, omusajja oba museveni oba gavumenti yagezaako okubeera nga ekolawo ate etteeka eppya n'eweera ebimeeza byonna. In 2013, they passed the Uganda Communications Commission Act, which gave UCC sweeping powers to withdraw licenses of media stations that will be deemed troublesome in the name of enforcing minimum broadcasting standards. And since then, media houses have been trading cautiously, many apparently operating on provisional licenses. They will remind us whenever a guest goes bare knuckles that the views expressed are not of the station but those of the guests. The fear is apparent. Bagambye no wano ebiseera ebisinga omuntu wagenda ku radio station n'ayogera ebintu ebyenjawulo bamugambirawo nti oba rather bagamba abantu nti bannange ezo views si zaffe radio station wabula za muntu oba okitegeera. Many are apparently operating on provisional license nga bwe nkugambye era nga webawogera ebintu byonna byonna radio station yegamba nti obubaka si bwaffe owala bwa muntu azze. Effectively, they had found a way of controlling mainstream media. The next problem was how to deal with public gatherings. Okitegeera, public media bali bagimaliriza naye kakati nga bagala kutegeera enkuŋŋaana zino eziri public bagenda zikwata batya. Jjuka tuli ku tteeka lino Muhammad Nsereko lyaleese twagala tutegeere gye lyava ebyafaayo byalyo. Following the 2011 walk to work protests, the regime became desperate to ban all public gatherings of a political nature. In 2013, they enacted the Public Order Management Act, which effectively required every citizen to get police permission before organizing or participating in any demonstration. How the POMA has been used to crack down dissent since then is well known world over. Nti engeri gundi eno gye baleeta empya gye bayita Public Order Management Act gye bagikozesezamu okubeera nga bakwata ate abantu ab'enjawulo emanyikiddwa mu nsi yonna yonna. To date, there are people rotting in Kitalya, Luzira and other prisons for several years for going against this draconian law. The very mover and act defender of the law, Amama Mbabazi, faced its wrath at some point, just like the present law is bound to catch its mover and supporters. Bagamba etteeka lino jjukira omu ku basajja abaalireeta Amama Mbabazi lyamukwatako ye kennyini nnyini. And so, through the Public Management Act, the regime effectively banned public gatherings and demonstrations. The next challenge for the regime was social media. Kakati ebyo byonna byali babikoze public gathering nga baziganye, media houses nga bazicontrolling, kati ekyali kiddako nga social media emeze, nga social media yo tebalina engeri gye bayinza gikwatirako. Okitegeera, with public gatherings banned and media stations severely restricted, the regime thought it would have a smooth sail, but since the advent of the People Power movement in 2018, the regime found itself with a new problem to deal with, and that was social media. As more and more young people expressed contrary views on social media, the regime felt threatened. they immediately introduced a daily social media tax of 200 UGX called OTT. That did not deter people. Those who had the means paid, while others bypassed it using VPN. Frustrated and desperate, they decided to ban Facebook in Uganda, which remains banned, by the way, up to date. Facebook bagibanninga n'olunaku olwaleero, but the people still bypassed the ban using VPN networks. And so it has been a huge challenge to the government. They could rig elections with impunity, carry out abductions and illegal arrests, and exercise all manner of illegalities, but they couldn't prevent citizens from expressing their disgust and discontent with the corrupt and inept regime via Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, etc. In between, a new problem emerged for the regime. That was in form of the people-powered dress code, comprised of red berets, red overalls, etc. These dressings emboldened the people and are a symbol of resistance. As they became widespread all over the country, the regime immediately gazetted them in accordance with the UPDF Act and said they belong to the military. Henceforth, this has since been used to abduct, torture, and detain thousands and charge them before the military court. But the social media problem persisted for the regime. They have been relying on Section 25 of the Computer Misuse Act to abduct, arrest, torture, and detain several social media users for being so critical to the regime or expressing its dark side. As we speak, several journalists and online activists are on the run or in exile for fear of being abducted violently and arrested over their publications on social media. But it is now clear that, according to the regime, the provision was not enough for repressive purposes, because the highest punishment is 480,000 kwa akti enkadde and imprisonment for 1 year or less. Secondly, it requires the offended person to come and testify that their peace has been disturbed or their privacy infringed upon. Of course, no regime official wants to embarrass themselves testifying how they want to muzzle criticism. That is how much the regime decided to enlist Muhammad Nsereko's, or that is how important the regime decided to enlist Muhammad Nsereko's services. His law effectively bans the use of social media and other electronic mechanisms. Criticize the regime and its officials under the law. These are the following things to be looked upon. First of all, number one is you cannot record someone's voice or video without authorization. Number two, you cannot share information about or that relates to another person without authorization. So recording to sharing. Number three, you cannot write, share, or send information about anyone which is likely to demean, ridicule, or degrade another person. That is number three. Number four, you cannot share unsolicited information with anyone. Number five, the punishment of doing any of these things will range from paying fines of up to 15 million Ugandan shillings and imprisonment of up to 7 or 10 years, depending on which section you have violated. In addition, a person convicted under Nsereko Muhammadi's law will not be allowed to hold public office for 10 years. You can see now who the target is. Omuntu anabeera ng'azza guno omusango ne gumuka mu vvi tasobola kwesemba ku kifo kya public kumala myaka 10. Kitegeera? You can now imagine what the military regime can use this law for. If General Museveni has been using a knife to deal with the threat of social media, Nsereko Muhammad now has handed him a machete. If he has been using a stone, he now has a hammer. In terms of unconstitutionality, this law goes far beyond all the repressive laws highlighted above. History will be harsh not only to the oppressors, but mostly to those who aided the oppressors in oppressing the people. The beauty is that repressive laws have never stopped any regime from falling. No single law has ever stopped the people from eventually reclaiming their power and sovereignty. They could have since forgotten, but this fact was captured aptly by the NRA while in the bush In their book Mission of Freedom, page 2, the right of rebellion against tyranny has been recognized from the ancient days to the present day by men of all creeds. It transcends any narrow laws untouched by petty dictators and despots. Our struggle will end in victory. Ebyo nno bya David Lewis Luwongoya. Kitegeera eyo article ya David Lewis Luwongoya. Tell me what you think in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell button. Peace.